Welcome to the Body, Mind, Spirit Show with me, your host, Coach Rita Hurry. Welcome everyone to the Body, Mind, Spirit Show. Today I have another special guest who I'm so looking forward to chatting to. Her name is Lesley Hunter and she is the President of Resume Makeover. Lesley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rita. I'm so happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. So when I was doing my little investigation of you, my research of you, I discovered that you are just an all-rounder in a lot of different areas. Like you've won and taken part in pageants, you're an amazing pianist, a blogger, and you're president of Resume Makeover. I mean, can you tell me what keeps you inspired and just a little bit about all these great things that you do?
Sure. Thank you. You make me sound so good. Yes. So yes, in terms of what keeps me inspired, a couple different things. In everything that I do, I really love to inspire and help others. That relates to all the aspects you mentioned. For example, in my business, Resume Makeover, which I've had for over 6 years now. I help individuals with their resumes, but it's more than just their resume. A lot of people are going through difficult changes, have been laid off. One of my clients before he came to me was literally out of work for 2 years. And as you can imagine, that is pretty devastating for most people, unless they're literally, intending to take that time off. So a lot of the people that I work with, some are just, looking to get better jobs, but then oftentimes are going through really big life changes where they're having difficulties. So, even just writing their resume and most of my clients do find work, shortly after, thank goodness. And so I've had clients say, wow, one lady I didn't know personally, that I wrote her resume. She invited me to her wedding. And I was like, wow, that's so sweet. And she was like, yeah, you helped me through like a super critical time and I loved your energy. And on top of that, like I had trouble finding work, before kind of this revamp, and it super like revitalized my self-esteem and I love my new job. And so, that's just even just through writing, and resume writing is obviously, I'm sure, with the writing and aspect, you can understand, Rita, too, that you can really inspire and make a difference. So, with pageantry, you mentioned that, discussed a little bit as well about some of my activities. With pageantry, I've been doing that since my not super young like some people, but more like closer to my early 20s, late teens. And a title that I held when I lived in Los Angeles a few years ago was Mrs. Pasadena. And so that was great because a lot of people look at pageant queens, and yes, we do wear the crowns. There is obviously an element of glamour to it. But one of the things that really impacted me was that I was asked to come in and be a special guest reading. And I also, as you mentioned, playing piano and reading to kids that were from very underserved communities. And they did not have a lot of opportunity in their community. And so going in, and many of these kids were of color. So going in and just simply reading to them from, especially with other African-American and, people of color that were authors, really inspired them. I was almost like blown away how much these kids really, looked up to me and some of the other people involved in the event as role models. They needed that support. And walking away from that specific event, it was called Chocolate Story Time, reading event at one of the libraries in Pasadena. The Pasadena Library really helped them, but it also made me feel so good inside. I mean, more than any title itself, more than any high paying client, this intrinsic value felt so important to me. So, I also try to really inspire people through my blog, as you mentioned, a blog as well, and have inspirational topics on uplifting people, especially women. So I could go on and on, but those are just some examples of what keeps me motivated. And I also really, doing all of these things and really doing my best to do them as well as possible, of course. I also am inspired due to wanting to be the best version of myself. I don't really call myself a competitive person in terms of with others, but I guess you could say, if I am competitive, it's with myself. I'm always thinking, am I better than I was the previous day? So as long as I'm improving myself and getting better and helping others, that's what I'm all about. I'm on the right track.
Yeah, I think what I love about that is the fact that with everything that you've done, it's been rewarding in the sense that you've given to people a lot more than just also taking for yourself. So for example, like when you were talking about resume writing and the depth of connection that you have to make with your clients, some people think, oh, it's very practical, but it's not. There's got to be that connection for you to know the person, to be able to do the makeover completely. And same with the pageants as well. You did more than, obviously, as you said, it's not just about wearing the crown, it's about giving back to society, giving back to those who need that support as well. I mean, does it make you feel more complete when you're doing these activities? And is that what's important to you, is that you get that essence of completeness for yourself and that you're giving back as well as doing the day-to-day actions from it?
100%. Yes. To answer that, it absolutely makes me feel complete. In fact, without, I'd feel not as complete. So I guess those activities that I do keep up my business and, other activities that maybe aren't my primary source of income outside of my business. But as you mentioned, in the pageantry or blog, those, without them, I really don't feel full or complete. So those are almost, I guess you could say, requirements. I almost consider them just for my sense of being completely fulfilled. And of course, helping others through those activities are like a main driver, of helping me to feel satisfied and complete, and not just, like you said, not just doing everyday action to keep busy, but feeling a strength and a spiritual fulfillment even from what I do.
Yeah, because it's so easy for us as career women to get so focused on the day-to-day activities. Got to do this, I've got to meet this quota, or I've got to make this amount of money, that it's so easy to lose ourselves and our essence in that arena. And the fact that you do all these other activities to almost give yourself that sense of purpose and that sense of, this is for me, this is my my kind of piece that I want to give as extra, apart from, as we said, the regular action. So I love the way that kind of, when you're saying that, in my head I'm getting this complete woman kind of picture that we all strive to be like, in terms of fulfilling ourselves with our career, but a lot of certain areas we miss, and we just think, oh, work will fill that up, but it's not necessarily the case. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. Well, what are your thoughts when I'm saying that? Or if it doesn't make sense, just tell me, Lesley.
Sure. Well, again, I'm even though you're not trying to, it's a flattering thing. I'm very grateful and appreciative when you say that you hear these things, you kind of gather an idea of the complete woman. I think that, of course, from that aspect, thank you. And then, yes, I do agree that whether it's someone that, I do agree that that is an element of being complete. Completeness is, it's subjective in some ways. I think that, but I also agree that having someone's, how do you say, a woman's hands in different areas can facilitate a feeling of completeness. Now, having hands in different areas in my mind isn't necessarily the same as just running around ragged. Of course, we don't want to run around and do 10 different things and still, which, right, which I'm sure you know and understand too, because that's stressful. But at the same time, which, just knowing you, me and you have even touched on before about not putting all of our, how do you say, there's a saying, eggs, I guess, in one basket, and hoping that, and if that falls apart, having our whole life fall apart, no, that's not a good thing. So in the sense for me of, having my business, which of course helps me to help people and also helps me to make money, but then music, which is fulfilling to me and that I happen to have done since a very young age, and, which also just even is therapeutic for me, and writing and the blog, which isn't, facilitating, I guess, on a daily basis, the type of money I am from Resume Makeover, but it's so just again, therapeutic, and it helps others. Just having balance, whatever that is for people. Some people could be running their business and working out and meditating, but whatever it is, having different aspects, of our existence that fulfill us, even if different ways, to kind of help round things out and keep us balanced. That is what I feel helps as women, especially, to make a complete woman.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So tell us more about Resume Makeover.
Yes. So Resume Makeover is, you can probably tell by the title, it's a resume writing company that I've had for over 6 years now. Also, so resume services are provided. I'll basically take, it's as of now almost a one-woman shop. I do have some vendors that work with me, but essentially it's me at this time. And for Resume Makeover, I have clients from different backgrounds, anywhere from entry level individuals that just graduated from high school and college that are super fresh to employment, up to C-suite level executives that have had 25 plus years of very, very intensive experience, and then everywhere in between. And I have something called a CPRW. It stands for Certified Professional Resume Writer Credential. I almost call it the CPA type of credential for resume writing. It's a similar type of credential for my industry, and it really helps me to be able to deal with clients from all specialties. I mean, I don't think I can think of a specialty I haven't done. I even wrote a preacher's resume earlier this year, but we get a lot of healthcare, marketing, IT, COOs and CEOs. So yes, in addition to resume writing itself, and revamping someone's resume, or even writing it in some situations from scratch, I offer cover letters, bios, additional items, reference letters that are helpful to the job application process. And I would say 95% of my business has to do with clients looking for jobs, but 5% or a little more will be small business owners that are really interested in me writing content for their websites, content to market their products, things like that. So it's a combination of resume writing and additional copywriting.
That's great. You never know, I might be using your services.
Yeah, call me up.
This is why I love these interviews, because I get to learn more about, I thought I knew a lot, but no, there's always something to learn about Lesley.
Well, thank you.
So,
lots of layers.
Yeah. And that's good. Keeps us all on our toes.
That's true.
So, I mean, during this time, obviously, with the whole pandemic situation, which has hit us globally, there are a lot of women and, of course, men as well that are thinking about changing their career. What advice would you give someone who is thinking of that right now?
Yes, I would advise anyone who's thinking about doing something new or making a change to follow your intuition. What do they say? Never underestimate the power of a woman's intuition. And I think this can apply to men too. But I think as women, we're very intuitive. So if you're feeling that guttural instinct to gravitate towards something new, go for it. But also make sure to, before fully diving in, to do your research, construct and strategize a plan, write down projected costs, expenses, et cetera, to make sure that logistically things are feasible. But if you're feeling that pull, go for it. Just plan as well as you can before completely jumping in with cold feet.
Yeah, because I guess a lot of us, we follow well, should I come out of my comfort zone? Is this the time to actually do it? And then instead of actually, as you said, and quite rightly said, listening to our intuition, it's easy to take that step back and go against that and think, okay, no, I'm just going to stay here because although I don't like it, it's safe. What would you say to someone who was feeling like that?
I think, yeah, that's a good point, because I believe that it happens more often maybe than not, about that feeling. I would say to anyone who's going through that thought is that I understand, because security is important, and that's not necessarily all the time financial security. It could be just mental, like you mentioned, safeness, security, not having to go through change, or even if it's not negative, some sort of upheaval. So I would say to that person, I understand where you're coming from. However, if it doesn't feel completely right or mostly right in your gut, if you're feeling like you're there and making a sacrifice for something that seems to feel right in the moment, but is not maybe what you deep down feel that you should do, eventually you're either going to be unhappy, or you're going to, either resent what you're doing, or negative feeling, just from my experience or from talking with others that have maybe stayed in something longer, but saying, well, it's not what I don't really like it at all, but it's paying my bills. Or, there's going to come a time where most likely you're going to feel like you're not fulfilled completely. And so you're probably going to eventually make a change anyway. So I would say if you're kind of getting that inkling, especially if you haven't just been in the job for a short time, like I wouldn't say after a month and you're like, oh, I hate this, let me leave. But if you've been doing that,
so easily done.
Right. I mean, follow through. There is something to be said for sticking through to some degree. But if you've been in a kind of feeling a little bit stuck in a place for a long enough period of time, if you ignore those feelings of I need to do something better, bigger for myself, better for myself, or more liberating in XYZ sense, don't ignore that feeling, even if you were to stay in the current job a little bit more, but kind of setting up things, researching, really planning to, to make that exit. I would highly advise that, because you don't want to end up 5 years later after your thought of leaving from where you're at, staying there and saying, wow, I'm like even more unhappy. And now I feel even more stuck. And, always make a plan, listen to your gut, but also listen to logic, and kind of, I would advise to maybe try to fuse both. Don't suppress your passion, but also make sure that if you do leave, it's not like, okay, I'm just going to leave and I have no plan. Try to cultivate something, as you're getting that feeling that you want out.
Yeah, that is such a great answer. And I think a lot of women and men, if they're listening, will actually take that and should take that on board, because like you said, we've got to have some sort of plan, and we've also got to have, even just trying it. Say, many people who would love to start a business and not work the 9 to 5, doing the business while you're working the 9 to 5 will give you that experience to, is it something you really want to go through with, or actually has the 9 to 5, is the 9 to 5 going to give you something that little bit more? So loved your answer. That was great.
Well, thanks.
So what tips can you share? I mean, obviously not giving too much away, but what tips can you share about writing a good resume that people should think about?
Sure. It's funny. I would say, you'd probably get a shorter answer if the question was, what tips can I not share?
Okay.
Right. But I know what you mean. I mean, there's so many things I technically could, advise, but I'll definitely share a couple of things to mind, and I don't mind sharing it all. But so one of the things would be definitely use powerful action verbs on your resume. A lot of people may use the line responsible for executing, relationship management, responsible for handling paperwork, responsible for it's more passive. It's not something that grabs attention. Maybe instead of responsible for handling relationship management, you could use the action verb forge, the mutually beneficial relationships, or spearheaded, maybe like a powerful action verb, spearheaded a project generating $50,000 in additional revenue. Keeping in mind to use those powerful action verbs at the beginning of each sentence / bullet point, to not have a hiring manager have a snooze fest, basically, by saying responsible for this, responsible for that. So making sure to use powerful action verbs, and also switching, making sure not to be too repetitive, which of course, me and you as writers, we'll know that, Rita, but a lot of people don't know that or aren't writers. So if you're constructing your own resume, change it up, try not to repeat too much, and use like powerful action verbs. Another thing I would say is to focus on accomplishments versus purely tasks. It's okay to mention everyday tasks that you do. For example, if you're in sales, you may say, prospect, whatever it is, 10 to 20, new leads a day. That's fine. It's fine to say that, but that's something that, of course, you're in sales, it's expected to do. Mentioning more accomplishment-based activities that differentiate you from the average salesperson is good. So let's say that you increase sales by 20%, in a 6-month period. You want to focus on accomplishments and result-based activities like that really show that you're delving, that you're pushing things forward, and that you're going outside of what's expected of you to, in that example, increase revenue, and not just focusing on the everyday, day-to-day tasks that anyone would have. I'll mention maybe one more, is to target. So without getting too technical, most companies use something called an ATS, an applicant tracking system. So this is a software to where when you submit your resume, it will go through the software. And if it passes, if it passes virtually through the software, it will be handed off to a real live person, a recruiter, hiring manager. And if it fails, it'll kind of just be thrown out into the bunch. And 75% of resumes are rejected through this applicant tracking system. So you really want to focus on kind of a key to hope pass through the system is to have the right keywords in your resume. So any job description that you're applying to, make sure to, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat, make sure to use as many similar phrases or keywords in your resume that the job description has. That will help this software to recognize and say, oh, this is what this job description is looking for. These elements are contained in the resume. Let me pass it through. So yes, those are, I mean, I could go on and on, but those are 3, hopefully, very useful tips. Always make sure too that your resume format is current and not out of date, not looking like it's from like the 1990s or early 2000s.
That's probably my resume there from the 1990s. When you're telling me this, I'm like, yeah, my one's so is like way back. I mean, I'm not going to reveal my age on this podcast, but yeah, way back.
Well, hopefully it helped. Hopefully it'll help.
Yeah, because I love the way you put on there, focusing on your achievements, and I think that's what many of us have not actually done. We focus on the duties that we've done, and I know even like when I think back to my resume, it was just like a list of the duties, and it like same words like spearheaded, which I love, is like that wasn't used. And even back in the day, it was like they never told us to think like that. But now listening to you, it's like looking for a job and changing career is almost like what you would do to set up a business, like the keywords and the empowering words that you would use. And then obviously this ATS system, like that, this thing that's come up, and checking the keywords and have you got that? I mean, it is like your own business. It's practically the same. The effort you have to put into it is the same as what you do for a website. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and interesting that you mentioned that. And you're totally right. Because as you mentioned, it's what you would do, as an entrepreneur, and as you mentioned with websites and keywords. And it just reminded me of SEO, search engine optimization, or, where you're like, say, on my blog or on my website for my business, where it's constantly to get more traffic, so that's really great. It's funny. I don't know if I've actually thought of it in that way, but you're absolutely right, Rita. That's super keen. I mean, and in a way, the process itself of applying for a job is like, as you mentioned, being an entrepreneur. You have to even do the job process. I believe it's 1 out of 10 resumes may not even be considered all the time for an interview. So it's just, I think at max, it depends on the person, 1 out of 10 may be considered just for an interview, not even like potentially for the job, but just to be called in. And that's really being an effective resume. So it's a numbers game, just like being an entrepreneur is a numbers game, and attracting clientele. And there's other elements that go into it, of course, being more authentic and higher quality and getting referrals. Those will all, even as an entrepreneur, up, the amount of business that you close. But it essentially is a numbers game, just like the job application process, where you have to be patient and strategic, as you were mentioning too, about keywords. And so, that's a really great parallel. I'm going to have to, if you don't mind, I may use that sometimes.
That's fine. That will always remind you of this podcast.
I'll be like, courtesy of Rita Hurley.
So, I mean, one other thing that obviously our listeners probably don't know is that you are also spiritual lady. So how do you blend? Because one of the things that I notice, especially, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do, is a lot of professional, high achieving women. They often feel like, okay, that it's all go, their career, achieving the success, which is brilliant and amazing, but also the spiritual side often gets neglected. But I know that you're quite spiritual as well. So how has spirituality affected your life and your career?
Sure. Yes, spirituality has affected my life in many different aspects. Specifically, I'm a firm believer of what you put out energetically, you'll get back, whether positive or negative. And I tend to impart naturally, or maybe and in part consciously, and with effort, keep my vibes high, as they say, so that I can exert good energy towards those around me, and in return, attract positivity back. So, so it's interesting how to kind of manifest different ways. And in business, what I do, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is fulfilling for me, not just financially, but because of helping individuals in oftentimes really tough parts of their life, or where they feel stuck and changing jobs, things like that, even sometimes making bigger life changes, and the job is just one aspect of that. So I do, sometimes, even though I'm not technically a therapist or a spiritual coach like you, with people that are coming to me because sometimes they do feel spiritually broken, or they've been employed for a long amount of time, or they have to just up and change their job because they got laid off, and it's devastating. That some people do feel in that moment broken. And of course, I can't talk the whole hour giving them just a pep talk, but within the resume writing experience and asking them questions on the technical aspect, just me and my authenticity, I'll also make sure to throw in some little pep things, and trying to keep, the hope and the positivity in their minds through this process too. And, maybe not every resume writer feels that they have to do that, but to me, it's just natural. Like if I can't just say, okay, when'd you work here? Okay, next. Okay, next.
That's not you.
It's not me at all. So, I can get to the crux of the technical info we need, but also, I'm naturally, feeling the energy of the person. So just those little pick me ups, even in passing, that I feel make a big difference to them and helps me spiritually. So that's just one way I apply it in terms of professionally. Also on a daily basis, not everyone is spiritual religious, but I do write in a prayer journal to pray over my friends, family, those that are suffering. I need to be better. I used to be consistent about it every day. I need to probably pick it up, and do that again. But I do feel and know from personal experience there's much power in prayer, so I try to pray as often as I can. And what I call prayer for me is what some people call meditation for them. It's what other people call, putting good vibes out. So, it's not necessarily even like what I consider super religious. It's just about putting those positive, and there's nothing wrong with being religious if you are, but putting those positive, affirmations out. And for me as a writer, I also like putting things on paper. Sometimes they just kind of resonate with me stronger. I can meditate on them more when I see them visually. So that's what helps. So, regardless of, if you consider yourself religious or not, I think just being, knowledgeable about energy and about, I guess, the spirituality in the world, keeping one's thoughts and energies pure and of love, I feel it will definitely attract better things towards you, versus emitting counterproductive or kind of lower vibrational thoughts or things that aren't positive.
Yeah, no, definitely. I 100% agree with you there. And I think a lot of it is that body, mind, spirit balance, isn't it? It's like having the mind is the career and, being the go-getter and getting your mind focused. And then the body is like the exercising, what you put into your body and how you look after it. And then obviously the spiritual side, which is, and as you said, be that prayer, be that meditation, and giving out the good energy so that you get that like attracts like vibe, so that all is good around you, all the good energy. So
yes,
that. And I think what's important is also that having that good energy around you and attracting those good things, because we often get stuck in our head, don't we, of especially if there's a hurdle. It's very easy to get into your head without actually having some sort of release, when you have those moments of struggle, either the day's gone busy or you're stressed, what would you say is your go-to? Is it exercising? Is it going away? I mean, or is there, just a regime, or is it, like you said, prayer, meditation? What would you say is your main go-to?
Yeah, for me personally, I would say two main things help. As you hit on exercise, I mean, people that do either know me personally or follow some of my social media, especially my personal non-business pages. Like, one of the things for, like, I always see you working out, and it's so and when people say to me, they're like, you're jumping around, because I do a lot of
Yeah.
high intensity, crazy looking, exercises. But for me, it's it's a way to release. Sometimes it will be in the middle of the day, like if I've had maybe several client calls, if it's a busier day, and I've had several, like, maybe back-to-back client calls or business activities, and I know I have like an hour and a half of time before jumping to the next thing. Sometimes, even if it's a short workout or whatever, I'll usually incorporate that, because it just helps me to feel better. And I know that's something that a lot of people that are into working out find. Whether you're into working out or not, one other thing that I do find is very helpful is, it sounds simple, but in that moment, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just like stopping and just like taking a moment of silence and kind of just talking to yourself and saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed in this moment.
Yeah.
Things are going to align. I think half the battle is like self-talk. And don't get me wrong, like I am by no means I would like to say I'm a perfect individual. I am by no means not. There's sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting stressed, and maybe a little worked out up. And then I'll just kind of say, you know what, if it's not working out, it's saying, okay, let me take this moment. Even if it's like 2 minutes, or it doesn't even have to be like 30 minutes, just to just calm down. I personally like, I'm kind of a nerd, so I like playing. I have this chess.com app on my phone. And sometimes even if it's just like playing a minute or two of a chess game, or if I can't play with the light versus the computer, something that I enjoy, but that's if I don't have a whole bunch of time to get into, to almost like divert my brain from something stressful onto something that I enjoy, and then say, okay, now I have to go back from work, but just kind of taking that reset moment, a deep breath, talking to yourself, a quick, part of a chess game or whatever that kind of calms your mental activity down and puts you in a more even, balanced mental state.
Yeah,
it's helpful.
That's true. I think for me, if I try to play chess, it's frustrating because I can't play it. I've seen that series. What was it?
The Queen's Gambit.
Like, oh my gosh, no wonder she stays up at night.
Oh yeah, the Queen's Gambit. I know, that was so good. I love that one. But you're right. That might stress you more out. So maybe not chess.
Yeah, maybe something like, I don't know. In America, do you have Snakes and Ladders?
I have heard of Snakes and Ladders. I know people that have played it. I've just never played it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's just something so simple, which you either go up the board or you're coming back down.
Exactly.
No, that was absolutely. I love that, because it's important for people to know that when they get stressed, is give yourself that break, give your mind that break to come away and then go back in with almost that fresh perspective. So that was awesome. So where can our listeners go to find out more about you and Resume Makeover?
Yes. Well, you can go to my website, which is resumemakeover.com. I'll spell it out as normal, but I'll spell it out RES like Sam, U M like Mark, E, and then makeover.com. Or you can follow me on my Instagram business page, resume.makeover. And for resume help, please shoot me, or just to say hello, you can always shoot me an email to Lesley@resumemakeover.com. My name's spelled a little bit different than the average Lesley. So it's LESLEY@resumemakeover.com. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I'd love to be in touch, and you can always say, hey, I heard you on the Body, Mind, Soul show with Rita Hurry. And I'll say, oh, that's great. So I love to hear from from people and keep in touch.
Excellent, excellent. So listeners, make sure you do contact Lesley for any tips. It could be workout tips, it could be blogging tips, whatever it is. I'm sure she'd welcome you with open arms. But again, and also, of course, resumes, because it sounds you are definitely an expert in that area. I've learned a lot in this interview. So Lesley, I want to say thank you so much. I could continue asking you questions for ages, but again, time is against us. But maybe, you never know, I might get you back on the show and we'll just talk about whatever comes up.
Absolutely. Of course, I'd be open to that anytime. And I'm so grateful to be your special guest. I really appreciated being on your podcast.
Thank you. Okay, listeners, that's it for another episode. So please feel free to contact Lesley if you are in need of a resume makeover. Until next time, I say goodbye and speak to you all soon. Bye. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, motivation, and of course, inspiration coming up real soon. If you want to email me and send me messages of what you thought of the show or anything you'd love me to cover on the show, please email me at coachreeta@swasthialiving.com. Swasthia Living is SwasthyaLiving.com. See you real soon. Bye.